1010 WOLB Baltimore and WERQ-FM HD3 Baltimore.
The views and opinions of the guest and host you hear on 1010 WOLB
are not necessarily those of the staff and management of Radio 1, its sponsors, or advertisers.
Good wintry afternoon, family. It's another edition of the DMV Daily Radio Show. I'm your host, San Giordano, a.k.a. Mr. Politics, back in the building, joined by that legal eagle, Mr. Ivan Bates, here in the snow today.
Hey, how you doing, my brother? How's everybody doing out there?
Oh, man, it's wet out there. They should have closed everything down. Baltimore City was the only school that was open. It was ridiculous, man.
They close everything down. How they gonna get this powerful information from us?
Oh, they can't shut us down. So we can do this on the roof, and we're gonna be able to do that right around the corner. And we're gonna talk about that a little later. But today is Think About It Thursdays, as we discuss several hot topics happening across the city, state, and country. We want to hear from you, our faithful listeners, today, to hear what you have to say about it. Today is somewhat like a free-for-all Friday, but it's a Thursday, right? Because tomorrow we're going to have a very powerful and impactful show. Earlier this week, we had the opportunity to speak with Rabia Chaudhry from the Undisclosed Podcast, as well as Amelia Donald Perry from the Rolling Stones magazine. You heard the show, very impactful show. We were discussing the compelling case of Adnan Syed, the young Pakistani Muslim charged and convicted of the killing of his former girlfriend, Heyman Lee, in 1999. Right around the corner is where the crime apparently happened. And it was a case that brought what became a global phenomenon due mostly to Undisclosed and the Serial Podcast. His case, of course, is now pending before the Maryland Court of Appeals later this month. And the zealous prosecutor in the case, a man by the name of Tharu Vignaraja, who isn't even a prosecutor anymore, but rather a private attorney that has been given the rare ability to continue arguing this case despite no longer working for the Attorney General's office, who's been handling the case. Now, after the program, it was said by some of the guests and some of the HBO folks that were in there, we were having a conversation, and it seems, as was stated, as if the Keith Davis Jr. trial has become Baltimore City Attorney Marilyn Mosby's Adnan Syed case. Right? We will discuss both trials today. Ask the question, when does persistent prosecution become painful persecution? Where do we draw the line as a society? And what's the remedy for such perceived prosecutorial misconduct? We'll talk about that, as well as speaking about the Attorney General's office. Earlier today, Maryland Attorney General Brian Frost filed a motion appealing the recent ruling by a 3-judge federal court that threw out the six congressional district lines, forcing the state to redraw the lines by March 7th of next year, or else the courts would step in and they would appoint a 3-member commission to redraw those lines. The attorney for the state has apparently went against the wish of his own client, as Maryland Governor Larry Hogan, a Republican, urged the Democratic Attorney General, who's supposed to represent him in the state's interest, to follow the ruling handed down, allowing him and the legislature to redraw a fair map that isn't so political in that due time. Will the Supreme Court now take the case that the Attorney General has appealed it to the Supreme Court? And if not, what does that mean for the voters of the 6th Congressional District and the tight timeline that Maryland legislators will have to redraw the lines ahead of the 2020 elections? We'll talk about what I mean and even more on that case later on today as well. Yesterday, 1 man was killed, 2 others injured in less than 30 minutes here in the city of Baltimore. However, November has seen a sharp decline in fatal shootings over the past 2 months, where we witnessed 17 people killed in 1 week during that violent period of September and October. With 270 homicides accounted for already this year, and only 46 days left until the start of the new year, Will Baltimore exceed 300 homicides for the fourth straight year? And in Georgia, with close to 4 million votes already counted and an estimated 30,000 absentee and provisional ballots still left to be counted, Stacey Abrams remains roughly 18,000 votes away from forcing a recount and about 20,000 votes away from a runoff. Can she reach those numbers that she needs to extend the all-important and possibly historic Georgia gubernatorial contest, or will former Secretary of State Brian Kemp, who resigned last week in anticipation of taking over as governor, remain the declared winner? Well, apparently, in his mind, he is the winner. And with several key court rulings going in the favor of Abrams happening earlier this week, will this race be challenged overall, regardless of the outcome? All that and more on today's DMV Daily radio show. But before we get into that, let me first acknowledge our general supporters. Of course, this program is owned, operated, and produced by the DMV Daily Media Group, Maryland's premier communication firm specializing in radio, television, and online podcasting productions. Get your message heard each and every day by advertising right here on the DMV Daily Show. You want your business and or your message heard by thousands of people on multiple streams such as iTunes, Spotify, Alexa, Facebook, Periscope, YouTube, Google Play, and TuneIn every day. Make sure you contact them today. info@dmvdaily.news is the email. 443-294-3900 is the number. DMV Daily is also, as you know, in the process of creating our own broadcast network. It's going to include the radio station, the video productions. You'll be able to see DMV Daily broadcast 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and hear hard-hitting news productions just like the DMV Daily radio show you get here each and every day. We'll be able to have the equipment that allow us to report not only in our own studios that we'll be going into at the end of this month, but as well as live on location at the Anad Saeed case, as apparently on November 29th, or in the General Assembly in Annapolis when they start in January. This will allow us to do so much more and to bring you so much more citizen journalism for, of, and by the people. We are almost to our goal. And family, I want to say thank you so much. We still have a week left before our deadline, but we're on match to meet that goal, to be able to move in, to have all the finances we need, to get all the equipment that we need, the software, everything we need to make it happen. If you want to help us get over that hump and get to where we need to be by next week, by Thanksgiving, go to GoFundMe.com/DMV Radio today. Make sure you go ahead and get it done. $5, $10, $20. You'd be surprised how many people have given small donations. We definitely appreciate it. We definitely have a faithful listenership already, and we're only a little over a month into our broadcasting networking career here at DMV Daily, but it's been exhilarating ride the whole way. We definitely want to thank you for making that possible. This show is brought to you by Politicom Strategic Solutions, successfully helping candidates get elected since the 1970s. Politicom has mastered the art of political communications to become Maryland's premier campaign consulting firm. If you're looking to run for office, make sure you contact them today. 240-242-7505 is the number. PoliticomSolutions.com is the website. As we mentioned, it's a little snowy out there. It's a little icy out there. You want to be careful. But if, God forbid, you actually got into a fender bender today, whether it was your fault or anyone else's, you want to call that legal dream team known as Bates and Garcia. They have been representing people from criminal defense, real estate, and bodily injury cases for years, and they're the ones who I call if I ever get into a fender bender or any type of legal situation, and that's the ones I would advise for you to call today. Call now for your free consultation. 410-814-4600 is the number. And then, of course, we're also brought to you by SEIU 500, that powerhouse union who wants you to know that Together We Rise is not just a slogan, but a blueprint for the future of the union movement. Visit them today, www.seiu500.org. Now, we want to get into the conversation. You want to join in today's conversation? You got something burning inside of you want to talk about? Go ahead, call into the studio. 410-481-1010 is the number. Again, 410-481-1010. Or go to our Facebook Live page at DMV Daily News and post it there on our timeline. We're always tuned in. We'll be able to see exactly what your comments and questions are. Don't forget, family, Tomorrow, we will be joined by former Councilman Carl Stokes and Edwin Johnson to discuss the decision earlier this week by the Baltimore City Board of School Commissioners, who unanimously voted to revoke the charter of an all-boys school that Stokes and Johnson both founded and run, the Banneker Blake Academy, that largely targets African-American boys here in the city of Baltimore. Facts will be revealed as we get into an in-depth discussion about the shenanigans that are taking place regarding our city schools and our children's education, a program you definitely don't want to miss. So make sure you call in today. So what's happening, man? You over there coughing and nodding up.
What happened to Mark? Party too hard last night?
Yeah, I don't know. Mr. Birthday Boy, he really stretching out right now. You better not call in either, because we ain't let you call in today. You got to come in like we do.
We got that late job for you.
He enjoyed his birthday.
Well, what are you talking about, 52? How old is he now?
He said 29.
Yeah, that's what he said. I gotta ask Mama McLaurin how old he is. She tells the truth. So what's happening, man? It's
Hey, I'm on the grind.
Yeah,
I'm a little upset. Felt the judges in the court should have been closed around the state, but they weren't. But the wheels of justice, I guess, still must turn.
Yeah. They had us down there at the Register of Wills office, and a damn person came in there.
No, I agree.
Who in the world gonna come down there at Register of Will opening the state, and you got freezing ice and snow and rain coming down? Come on, man. People just don't use common sense these days.
I know.
And I can't even blame. You can't blame the register. You can't blame the sheriff. You gotta blame one person, the administrative judge. This, yes. I can't cuss on air. When we start our own network, we can cuss all we want. But because we're on OLB, we can't cuss. But if I could, that would be my feelings towards this administrative judge, man, who now, this is the funny thing. I can go anywhere in this state with my state ID. And y'all could probably do the same thing with your lawyer IDs.
Yeah.
Walk straight through security. Right? Yeah. No problem. Don't even got to go through the whole check thing, because they know you're an officer of the court.
Yeah.
So they pretty much trust you. Go to Annapolis, same thing. Where we work at primarily,
I know,
we now got to go through, everybody got to go through, and their excuse is, well, you may bring something in for the criminals. Like, are you serious right now?
I know.
But here's the thing.
Time we live in.
But the judges who imposed it, they can walk right in with nothing.
Right in with nothing. I agree.
Cut it out, man.
I agree.
Man, what's his name again? What's that judge's name again?
Pearson.
Pearson. Yeah. Man,
he's a chief
Michael
judge.
Pearson.
Yep.
Some of these judges are probably packing under that robe.
Man, I don't mind an employee packing, to be quite honest. But it's for even the sheriff deputies who now have to sit there and make everybody go through this. Take your belts off, take this off, take shoes off. Well, I told people of producing that show and bringing that to light. That was a huge show. And people didn't know.
Thank you to, what was that, Undisclosed, Rolling Stone Magazine, and HBO.
Yeah.
We have to thank them.
That people kept asking me, son, who in the world are them cameras that kept walking behind you during the show? And that was HBO, because they're doing a documentary miniseries regarding, I think, the Adnan Syed case.
Exactly.
Because of the impact and how big it is. So that'll be, I think, released, in January?
Sometime next year. Yeah, I don't know when. Sometime next year. It'll be interesting. I've actually seen it advertised on HBO. I remember I saw once. So, yeah, you're right. It's going to be very, very interesting.
So, I'm going to ask you this, because I was going to direct it to Mark, because I didn't want to get you in no hot water, right? But clearly, there's a very big issue with this guy, Tharu Vignaraja, amongst prosecutors and legal defense, people who called in here, very established. These aren't no cool type of people. I mean, Russell Neverdon called in, Roland Brown. What's my guy's name? Jeremy Eldridge. Whole bunch of esteemed lawyers, right? People I would call if I was in a jam if you weren't available.
Yeah.
And they raised issues in regards to the ethics of this gentleman, who seems to be, again, he's the Attorney General's the Attorney General's office for some reason has this case instead of the state's attorney during the appellate process. And yet, this guy doesn't even work for them anymore, and he's allowed to still prosecute this case. It seems a bit overzealous. Where do we draw that line? How do you know as a attorney or a prosecutor when you've crossed the line beyond just prosecution? Now it's just persecution. It's beyond just trying to put somebody behind bars, but now it's just clear. Same thing in the Keith Davis Jr.'s crime. Is there a remedy to be able to go after attorneys or prosecutors, more so prosecutors, in that case?
Well, there is. You can always go to the attorney grievance and file a grievance. That's one of the things you can do. But look at the type of individuals you're talking about. Individuals who view the case almost in a personal light, almost at a win at all costs type of individual. And those are the individuals, when you sit down and you look at it, in terms of, I'm not just talking about Mr. Vigneraj or Mrs. Mosby. I'm talking about, if you look at the history of prosecutors that have been overzealous, the same type of individual. That is, it's my way or the highway. I know what's best, the micromanagement and the thumping on the chest when they win and, blaming everybody else when they lose. But they don't have the opportunity to really look and do self-examination. I think when you look at the Adnan Syed case, it's very sad because, one, the listener needs to understand how the case even get to the Attorney General. When the case was initially handled, it was handled by the Baltimore City State's Attorney's Office. I know I was a homicide prosecutor in that division at that time period. And once the case was a victory, that case stays with the state's attorney's office. You have an attorney who files a post-conviction. So that's basically saying, hey, what the attorney who handled Mr. Syed's case, they didn't do a good job. That case is going to continuously be held by the Baltimore City State's Attorney's Office. For whatever reason, Mrs. Mosby made a deal with Mr. Vigneraj and let him take the case with him. And that's the first time, it's very interesting, you see them making a deal. He takes the case at Attorney General's office. I've never seen this, and I've been involved in the criminal justice system for 23 years. I have never seen this ever. Now, Mr. Vigneraj tries the case, not in another jurisdiction, but he tries the case in Baltimore City Circuit Court. The judge, Martin Welch, sits down and says, hey, you're right. There was a violation of this man's rights, and he should have a new trial. Most people, whether for him being guilty or against him, or say, oh, he's innocent, pretty much 90% of the people I talk to agree that he should have a new trial. That's all you're asking for a new trial. However, Mr. Vigneraj has made the decision on his own that they should go ahead and file an appeal. Now, this is the other part that I'm blown away by, and I blame Brian Frosch for this. Mr. Vigneraj is no longer in the Attorney General's office, but Mr. Frosch allows a private citizen the opportunity to make that decision, how to spend taxpayers' dollars, something else the citizens may not understand. Mr. Vigneraj was the author of the report that the University of Maryland paid a private entity to say whether or not they had their football department, what was the culture of that department. So that's important because remember, the University of Maryland, he was the author of that report. That's important because who are the attorneys for the University of Maryland? The Attorney General's office. So here the Attorney General's office asked outside counsel, Mr. Vigneraj, to do the report. But Mr. Vigneraj is conflicted out because he's actually an Attorney General, acting Attorney General, because he's doing the Adnan Syed case. So when you sit down and look at all of the way things are happening, so he's given this case, he's given the opportunity to decide how this money will be spent by the citizens. They lose in the Court of Special Appeals. And then he decides to file an appeal. State of Maryland's probably out of $150,000, $250,000 because when they lose, they're supposed to pay attorney fees and things like that. So this person who now is a private citizen is making that decision. Now let's look at the Keith Davis case. Keith Davis case was just a regular old quote-unquote garden variety murder case. But then what happens is, I think when Kelly Davis asked Marilyn Mosby questions, and it was on social media, from there you just see a personal venom come from Mrs. Mosby toward Mrs. Davis. And then you just see it's personal, it's more personal. You know, to sit down and remember we had a debate and Mrs. Mosby called Mrs. Davis a criminal. She said that she loves murderers. I mean, that's when it's too personal. My question is, if you give a case to another jurisdiction, such as Adnan Syed's case, don't you think maybe you need to have a different jurisdiction, maybe a prosecutor from Baltimore City or someone from the Maryland State's Prosecutor's Office to sit down and look? Both of those cases, both of those individuals are too close emotionally, and they can't see the forest for the trees. Mr. Vignarajah, he wants to win at all costs. They talked about why he was involved in the case. And Mrs. Mosby now, she's so far invested into this case, she wants to win at all costs. You get to a point where you have to step away from the case. You have to allow somebody else who's not as emotionally invested. Because now, unfortunately, you're showing a side of yourself that the voters and that the citizens, they don't deserve. Because justice must be blind.
And what I saw, it being personal, is when the state's attorney for Baltimore City, Mrs. Mosby, went to social media after the initial conviction of Keith Davis, and said something to the line of victory.
Victory, yeah.
Right? And you don't do that anyway. Like, it was like a personal, like, yeah. Like you said earlier, beat in the chest. Yeah, we got this. And it's like, no, it's not victory. If anything, it's justice for the citizens, right? If you believe that you're putting somebody guilty away.
Yes.
But I've never seen that in any other tweet that I've ever seen that office or her do.
You've seen it in tweets, the Donald Trump tweets.
Well,
that's when you see that type of attitude.
I'm talking about from that office.
From that office, I've never seen that attitude ever. And that's when you know it's too personal. Look at this. This man has had 4 trials. Excuse me. The Detective Vini was caught in so many lies. If you're really about police corruption, you need to sit down and look at Detective Vini and look at him and what he said. He's so many lies. They brought a witness on who was a stone cold liar. You knew he was a liar and he was a hitman. So then you have to sit down and look at what's going on. Heck, the prosecutor had the case the whole time period. You found out that she had a DUI. You know, lots of people get DUIs. Sit her on the bench, allow somebody else to do the case. You don't have to fire her and fire her now all of a sudden. I mean, it's been handled in such a poor fashion. And then what you constantly see is the personal attacks against Kelly Davis. Kelly Davis is not the defendant. She's just a woman who just happens to be married to this person. Do you not think any other wife would stand up behind and beside and in front of her husband to say, hey, my husband is innocent? She's only doing what any other citizen would do for their loved one.
I hope mine would too. And she said it when she was on the show, was, I'm not just doing it because he's my husband. I'm doing it because I believe that he's innocent. Now, if he was guilty, I wouldn't be doing this.
Yes.
And she understands, she knows the man better than any of us would, better than Marilyn Mosby or anybody else would, right? You're married to the man, and you were speaking of which, I ain't got to speak for her because she's on the line anyway. Hey, welcome to the DMV Daily Show.
Hi, guys.
Hey.
Hey, guys. I was watching, and any other time I'm at work and I'm listening, but today I was like, hold up, I hear my name, I can call in. I really don't. That's the thing that sucks the most, is that this is personal for those folks over there. And for me, it's just about what's right. And at the end of the day, I think that people forget that, you know, this is the government. She is a public servant, and I did not do anything out of the ordinary. I didn't ask her for a favor. I didn't ask her to do me a solid. I just asked her to adequately do what she said that she was going to do, and that is look at everything, apply justice for all. And that simply has not been the case for Keith. And it simply, to be honest with you, has not been the case for this gentleman who lost his life, his family either. And Detective Vini and himself, I mean, there's a laundry list of things that would allow Keith to probably just be okay. And he's been wrong so many times, but Detective Vini especially, like this, he came from nowhere. Witnesses come from nowhere. And, you know, Ivan will tell you, I don't sleep at night. I sit up and research and try to find how to get my husband free. And the things that I can uncover just by researching cases. I mean, when I say that I've gone through every case that Detective Vini has had, I've gone through every case that every officer on Keith's case. I mean, do you know how long that takes me to go through research?
Let me ask you, did you find a link between Detective Vini and Daru Vignarajah as well?
Yeah. There's several links between Detective Vini and Daru Vignarajah. For some reason, Vini is the guy that Daru calls to intimidate his witnesses, to kind of just go at their houses and all types of different hours, and as well as there is a case with an informant that was murdered, and this guy's address was left behind by detectives. It's Vini and Daru's case. In Adnan's case, one of the witnesses, Vini was sent to their house and knocked on their door and misrepresented who he was. There, at the time, ironically, that he gets Keith's case, and if you look at his other caseloads, he was not getting any other homicides, and then all of a sudden he has Keith's case. He was working with Daru and his number two, which was Katie Dorian. I think Katie was doing more work, and Daru was kind of like on the outs. But in this big Brick City federal case. So he's kind of like, from my research, the fixer. You can give him a case, and he will fix it to fit. And I think that anyone who looks at Keith's case, you can tell that is exactly what he did. And the more you question him, the more that comes out. And the fact that he lied and was caught in lie after lie, and Marilyn Mosby has never gone after him and has never, like all of these officers just lied. Look at the CRB report. It clearly says these officers weren't truthful. And, for all of these prosecutors, in all fairness, she is not the only person, but for people like Daru to still have a job and still be in charge of people's liberty. And you know what? Let's be very clear and let's be very honest. It is mostly people of color. It is mostly us minorities that they are completely destroying their lives upside downwards. And you heard that guy who called in the other day. He is still trying to rebuild his life. And the fact that you just get to let go. At the end of this, they're going to let Keith go. Keith is going to prevail. He will be free. And do you know what they're going to let him go with? Oh, sorry. Our bad. That's unacceptable. And
is this officer still work on the department?
He's still not only does he work on the department, he's in homicide, and he's still the officer doing the Keith Davis case.
Yes, he testified in this latest case, and he is there. I mean, he's the heart of their case. He's supposedly the detective, and he has lied from day one. His warrant says Keith shot at officers, and officers shot back, wounding him, and a gun was found on him in his warrant. Because
you have
he started out the gate lying.
Remember, Keith was shot by the police first.
Yes.
That's what we always forget. Keith Davis was the victim of the police-involved shooting.
Yes.
That's what happened, and that's how we start.
And that gun that they claimed that they found in there, that was never even fired, correct?
It wasn't fired right then, yes.
Well, is there two questions on that? Is there a possible or a pending lawsuit that can be brought by the Davis family in regards to the shooting? And two, when he is found not guilty and they've kept him that long for this many trials, is there any repercussions or any lawsuit that can be brought for the state keeping him for so long? Or it's just, like she said, my bad, and that's it, and you don't get any kind of, how you get people who are convicted for years and then they find that they didn't actually do the case and then they can get some money. They can't
usually get compensated.
I mean, right. I think that is, and that's something that Ms. Williams was saying when we were actually there at the show. I mean, I think that is a great possibility. In my opinion, there is not a dollar amount that they could give us to make up for the hell that we've been through in 4 years. But we can't even get to that point of holding folks accountable in that way until we get through the criminal part. And that's just the smart thing to do legally, is to get the criminal charges adjudicated and done, and then move on civilly from what my research and from what Ms. Williams has told me. And we can't do that because we're going into our 5th trial.
Yeah, that's true. You first deal with the criminal and then the civil.
We keep, and let's be really clear, even though we're getting mistrials, in almost every trial, the state has had the most egregious, and when I say egregious, I am able to do that from researching case law from here to Timbuktu. It is some of the most foul, egregious discovery violations that the state's attorney office, nobody's holding a gun to their heads, nobody's making them, their prosecutors, that front office staff, all of them have committed, and they're kind of just allowed to get away with it and kind of move on. And, that's unfortunate because that, Keith's case is a prime example as to why this justice system just does not work and why it absolutely does not work for black men in this city. And that's why when I hear the whole, well, I support the current state's attorney because she's a black woman, Keith is a black man, I'm a black woman. I was called a repeat violent offender on public TV. I was called a murderer lover. I am talked about and discredited, but here's someone who runs on black girl power? Absolutely not. You clearly can't care because I'm black, these 4 kids are black, and my husband's black.
And, that's exactly what I'm talking about. When she talks the discovery violations and things. Yeah. How does an average citizen who has to endure this type of overzealous prosecutorial misconduct, I would say, how do you combat that? When can you draw the line and hold these prosecutors accountable? It seems like you can't.
Well, though, it's got to be, you're right, Kelly, the judges, but really, it's got to be the citizens. Because until citizens start, it's just politicians in general. If the politician is only going to do what you allow them to do.
But Farou's not a politician, so he's a prosecutor.
He's a prosecutor.
So you have to hold the AG.
You have to hold the AG responsible.
Okay.
And then with Ms. Mosby, you have to hold her responsible. Mm-hmm. You have to write letters. You have to sit down and not just, you're right, but it has to be lots of letters. You have to sit down. And it's until people really make the change at the voting booth that you're not going to see their change. When they're forced to have that change, then you'll see it.
So, Kelly, you go quick, because we got other calls, but I want to...
But I think that change comes from the reality that I'm seeing is that, okay, it's the power, it's fine, it's the snow. Sorry, the kids are freaking out. The reality of that comes down to this, and I've seen so many people say, oh my God, it's so unfortunate what you're going through. There's a disconnect. Because people don't experience this, they're not able to take that to the polls, where other people have, voted in this election recently because of Keith. Other people have to understand that Keith could have been you. It could have been you walking down the street and shot accidentally. It could have been you. Yeah. And I think that is the reality and why they're not held accountable, because no one's even able to make the connection that the person responsible for this is the city state's attorney.
So you heard the show we had earlier this week about the Adnan Saeed case. All right?
Yeah.
How do you in any way kind of compare? I see in my personal view, but I'm not involved in either one of the cases. But from an outside perspective, I want to hear your take. Do you see similarities in the overzealous prosecutorial methods of Farou in that case as opposed to Mrs. Mosby in this?
Absolutely. I think that you get away from justice. You get away from justice for the victim. You get away from all of this by taking and marking one person. And it's almost as if you're saying, it does not matter what the evidence says. This is my guy. It doesn't matter in how he's been before a slew of a jury of his peers who are essentially voters targeting that. Like they say, if you tell one lie, you got to tell another and another and another. If you twist and manipulate anything because you want that to be your guy, Ms. Williams' famous line in her closing argument is, we can make it fit. And in Adnan's case, make it fit. cell phone tower stuff is sketchy. Make it fit. Wasn't no payphone there. I've lived in Catonsville and in that area since I was 13 years old. There was never a payphone at Best Buy.
Exactly.
A bunch of people don't remember that. We can make this fit. So they take these things that they kind of harp on, and that is what the narrative that they feed to the public, and it gives you doubt and it makes you think. But then when you really sit in court, that's why when someone comes up and a suspect comes up and people are condemning them on social media, like, oh, I hope he go to jail. I always tell people, pause until you go sit in court and actually hear the evidence that they have. Don't condemn this young man or don't condemn this young lady.
Guilty until proven innocent.
Because what they're pushing out to you, when you get into court, DNA is not what they say DNA is. Fingerprint stuff is not what it is. Cell phone stuff is not what it is. And a lot of times the heart of their case, the real weight of their case is flat. But they will harp on these little things that are so inconsistent, but they can't always be virtually proving. I mean, Hassan, I heard you say, like, I don't ever remember no payphone there. No. I know for a fact I don't see that there. But how can you really prove that today or back then and stuff like that?
Yeah, the Best Buy's gone.
I think that there are lots of similarities.
And can I just say one thing? Again, I think the city does want change. 7,000 people spoke that they wanted change. And again, Ivan didn't run as a write-in candidate, so that was 7,000 genuine folks that definitely wanted to see change. And I know that here on the DMV Daily Show, we truly honor you and appreciate your steadfastness and your tenacity and your fight. And we will continue to shout Free Keith Davis on the mountaintops here.
Thank you so much. I really
Free Keith Davis.
Not a problem. Thanks, Jen.
Thank you.
So, and I do, and for all intents and purposes, I want to say that this is fair and balanced journalism, citizen journalism, for, of, and by the people. So we're going to tell the stories and give a voice to the voiceless, but we're also going to give the platform for Tharu, for State's Attorney Mosby, who we've invited over and over again. You can always come onto the show and explain yourself. I mean,
she can call in.
You can come in. Call in. We'll Skype you in. We can Skype guests in. That's how serious it is, right? It's nothing personal. It's strictly about the people, what's in the best interest of the people. And if you can come and you can explain this somewhat overzealous, I wouldn't even say somewhat overzealous prosecutorial handling of both of these cases, then we'll listen.
She's got a lot of explaining to do. She's got a lot of explaining to do because, again, my friend Tina Forrester and her husband Jim Forrester still hasn't gotten justice. And hearing the story and learning the story from her, I blame that directly on the state's attorney's office, and I demand an explanation.
Yeah. Well, we're open to hearing all sides of the issue. So again, we've reached out. You want to reach out? Call us, email us, whatever. Like we said, we'll Skype you in, do whatever you got to do. But we want to bring in Big Mills, who's been holding patiently on the lines. Welcome to the DMV Daily Show.
What's up, buddy? It's Big Nelly.
Oh, well, how you put Big Mills?
Big Mills, man.
What's up, man? I couldn't hear him with that phone.
How are you, my brother?
All right, man. I want to thank you, man, for being there with that situation, man.
Oh, you're welcome, brother. You're welcome.
Yeah, man. Like I said, my son was really shook up. Handcuffs. He smelled weed through the window. In handcuffs. You sit him on the ground. And when I told my son mother to get the officer the phone, and when I mentioned your name, I said, man, I'm on the phone with my main man right now. You know what them police did? They uncuffed him and told him, look, man, my bad, have a nice day. Now, I say that to say this. We need a state's attorney like you to let these officers know, because all officers ain't bad. But them jokers must knew. You know what I'm saying? They must know when to hold and when to fold. So we need somebody in leadership for the whole city to know that the state's attorney ain't playing. And it's going to be a fair state's attorney. So when you got leadership where though people think they can get over on them, you're going to have hell in the city of Baltimore. But I just mentioned your name, and that whole game changed. And I'm telling you what I know, man.
That sounds like Dwight Pettit and Carlton. Carlton says he always rides around in the car.
Remember Frank used to do that.
Yeah, Frank Conway used to say that all the time.
Hassan, I must say, man, between Ivan and I got to shout out Jack. Jack called me right back, and Jack was mad. And Jack said, man, don't nobody deserve that. Jack Young said, don't nobody deserve that. Yeah, my son works hard. He worked at a bank. He got his little gun permit, and he's doing everything to be on the good right side. He don't have no charges. But why brother, would you want to put him in handcuffs?
But, brother, that used to be commonplace here in the city. Like, when we used to do this thing called Flex Your Right seminars, where we used to try to teach the young ones how to flex their rights in Baltimore City, me and my wife, and another young lady in the city here. And when we used to invite the public defender's office in to come and, you know, teach with us. And I remember speaking to a lady from the public defender's office, and she said, that's like shooting fish in a barrel. Like, that was their common use of term. You know, I smell marijuana. You know, and again, you can't necessarily prove that in court, but for them, they felt that they gave them the authority to pull you out, to violate your constitutional rights, no search and seizure, no real probable cause other than you're saying you smell marijuana. I could have smoked marijuana 2 hours ago and it was just on my body. But that, you know, that's common. That used to be common in Baltimore City.
You know what, though? You know what? It was like 10 to 20 people on the side. And when everybody heard Ivan Bates' name mentioned, everybody kept on saying, "Yup, I'm telling you, he's not the one to be played with." I'm telling you that. I mean, this is what we need. We need somebody to say he's going to be fair, but don't play no games with me, because I will make sure you will remember me. That's what we need. We don't have that. That's what we need, and I thank y'all, man.
All right, sir. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you for that endorsement, and make sure you we'll send you that check.
Hello,
Mark C. Welcome to the program.
Hey, how y'all doing, man?
Good
news.
So
congratulations, man, on y'all show and everything. You know, I'm glad y'all got this, and then y'all gonna have the blueprint for other folks that want to go into media and stuff like that. And you got the the topics and everything that we want to talk about. I'm glad y'all gonna have Mr. Stokes on as far as that education piece. And guys, I don't know if y'all heard this, but we can 4432 Park Heights Avenue. We usually have our solutions meeting every third Thursday at 6 p.m. It's going to be canceled tonight, because of probably ain't nobody going to come out. But they have suits, high-end suits, free from 9 to 5 every day. People, if you're looking for a job or whatever, somebody need a suit, that they're giving away shirts and all that. 4432 Park Heights Avenue from 9 to 5.
Wow. Mark, what's your contact
information? Yeah. And they also got treatment on demand always, but our meeting won't be tonight, but it's usually every third Thursday at 6 o'clock. We ask everybody to join us with their solutions, and I'm glad that y'all got this show, man, and y'all take care.
Mark, hold on. Throw your information out there real quick. Throw your information out there.
Oh, yeah, the Mark C. Show every second and fourth Sunday, 5 p.m. We talk about issues that affect our lives and our community.
And how do people get in contact? How do people get in contact with you, Mark?
443-630-4023. 443-630-4023. Y'all have a good evening.
Thank you.
Kim, welcome to the DMV Daily Show.
Hello.
Hello.
Hey, gentlemen. How are you?
Hello. Good, and you?
Good, and you?
Good. Love the show. Ivan, I wish you had won. I voted for you. I was pulling for you.
Did you write them in?
Did I write them in?
Yeah, were you one of them 7,000?
Yes, I was. I actually remember a debate between you and Marilyn Mosby. She didn't show up. Theroux was there. It was at a brewery or something. And
off Green Mountain Avenue.
Yeah.
Was it Green Mountain? I think so. Yeah.
Right off Green Mountain 30.
Yeah.
Wow.
Theroux was there, and he. I wasn't impressed. I was not. I don't know. I have a good radar for that, but I do feel Marilyn Mosby, and I feel for that call of Keith Davis's wife. I'm not an attorney, but I think the state prosecution here is really they're dealing on or operating on an emotional level. I think Marilyn Mosby, I think she has I think she has a heart, but I think she wears it too much on her sleeve, and I think she decides what she's going to prosecute, how she's going to prosecute someone, and she doesn't deliver justice correctly. I think she decides, I want to win this, or she's very proud. I think she's a woman that says, I'm going to win this at all costs, even if you're throwing out all
Yeah.
And it really is. You act on emotion instead of the justice system and how things should be delivered. And I really feel bad for this Keith Davis gentleman, and my heart goes out to his wife.
Thank you very much, and thank you for your support.
That night, the Root told some little white lies as well that night during that debate.
Yeah, I'm gonna tell you something. Though. That debate, the organizers of that debate, I have to give kudos to. Because many times people put together debates and forums politically, and nobody comes, right? Or if they do, it's a fairly decent crowd, and but you predicate that on hoping they put together this debate and hoping people come for the debate. But what they did was ingenious. They did it at a brewery during happy hour.
Yeah.
So they knew people were going to be there in large abundance.
Yeah.
Many of them already voters, right? Who weren't there for the debate, but who turned and paid attention because of the debate. On top of the crowd that came that they invited for it. That had to have been one of the most ingenious debates I've seen thus far in a political season here in Baltimore. Well attended.
It was.
I ain't going to talk about the debate itself, but nonetheless.
Again, there was some white lies told.
I'm going to bring this guy on. I thought it said another name. I was going to say, I know you banned, but you my man, so you can come on. Keith Scott, welcome to the Daily. I thought it was Kenji Scott.
Well, it's only me.
Yes, sir. That ain't no only you. What's happening, Keith?
How you doing today? How y'all doing?
All right.
Good, and you?
I'm all the way in Florida. I'm on deployment working with the hurricane relief.
Oh, wow.
So only time I can get y'all is this, off my Facebook. So like I said, I've been gone for a minute. I plan on coming back. I don't know when the job's done, I guess. But just like the last caller, how people always looking for leadership.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, unfortunately, we're looking for that Mr. Right or Mrs. Right to change the world for you, but it don't work that way. It really don't. I mean, if you're not going to be able to participate in your own city, government, community, it's nothing going to change.
Yeah, that's true.
We're looking for that get fixed thing. You know what I'm saying? I mean, people got to realize if you want change, you're going to have to make change. Stop being dependent and be independent. Go to your neighbor, knock on your neighbor's doors. Okay, become that block association and create that community that you need. Then you make change.
Well, I agree. I agree in a sense, right, that we are the change that we keep looking for others to be. But there's also a time that these people who are supposed to represent our interests tend to become those who represent their own interests. And then at that point, you have to be kind of diligent in calling them out, right?
That's what I'm saying. I mean, Martin Luther King and Malcolm X, if they didn't have that gift of gab, what would they be?
But see, they had a vision. You know what I mean? And that's what we really need in some cases.
It wasn't their vision.
Right.
Okay? Martin Luther King's vision was the NAACP vision, and Malcolm's vision was Elijah Muhammad's vision.
Yeah, but I think they grew in, especially on Malcolm's side. I agree with you somewhat
on Malcolm was a follower until he went to Mecca. I mean, that's the whole point. I mean, we depend on we depend on that person with that gift of gab to lead us the right way.
Sometimes though, you have to have somebody bring you into your own, right? Sometimes leaders aren't just always born. Some people are made into leaders, right? And you may have somebody that is a born leader that you gravitate to that inspires you to become your own leader. There's nothing wrong with that.
Like Malcolm.
Yeah, I mean, Malcolm, he was a leader, but he was a leader in a wrong direction. He was a leader even in the criminal element, if you look at it. He ran the own. He just had the wrong perception.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, but the whole point, like I said, I mean, believe it or not, you make your philosophy. You follow that philosophy. Mm-hmm. Okay, you got people who like make up their own agenda and expect people just to fall in line. I mean, This is why we just select anybody that want to put their name on the ballot. Yeah. Nobody ever picked that person to put them on the ballot.
We used to do that.
I woke up this morning. I want to be the mayor. Okay, but who are you representing? Yourself or the city that you're supposed to be representing?
But we used to do that. We used to do that. We used to go into the churches, go into the meeting rooms in the churches, and we used to select who was the best person to represent our needs and our concerns.
I mean, that's
the
true.
The problem is we allow people now to come and tell us what our needs and concerns are, and then they go back and do something else in a smoky room.
Democracy is allowing individuals who meet certain qualifications to be able to run. The problem is when you allow for that to happen without true education behind it, you have people, I had this in the clerk's race, people had no damn clue of what the clerk of the court, but they were in the race.
Yeah.
And along the way, they would take pieces from this person's platform and that person's platform, piece them together, and it made them sound very credible. But nonetheless, they were parrots.
Didn't have a clue.
You could teach a parrot to say anything you want. That doesn't mean they intellectually know what to do with that. They just know how to say it. And you have that in many different races in politics.
It happened in my race.
Yeah, well, I have to call it out. It happened in Russell's race because I remember a lot of those talking points that somebody that's in office right now, were Russell's talking points way before this person came into office and way before they got on the campaign trail. I got to call BS where I see it at.
And that's because Russell Neverdon is a trial lawyer and has been to the courtroom. If you're not a trial lawyer, you can't fake the funk but so much. And what I think people are starting to see, whether it's, an incumbent, whether it's a challenger, you have to sit down, have they done the job, and do they know the job?
Mm-hmm. Sorry, what are they going to bring to it? All right, folks, well, we didn't even get to Brian Frosh appealing the decision to the Supreme Court regarding the 6th Congressional District. We'll talk about that at a later date. That's going to be huge because here's the thing. The timeline. See, this map had to be drawn by 2020's election.
Yes.
And the governor and them have to redraw it, and the legislature has to approve it. Here's the problem. If you appeal it, the Supreme Court doesn't end until July of next year when their term ends. Then they come back October, Bloody Sunday, after Bloody Sunday. It's the term they use. So that means if they wait and this decision doesn't hand down until July then guess what? Now you got that. Or if they wait till the next, it's going to be funky. I'm telling you, it's going to be a mess. And you're the lawyer for the governor. The governor didn't want to appeal it.
No.
But you're going to do it on your own.
But you remember, he also sat down and decided to say, we're not going to pay the HBCUs, and then he tried to blame it on Hogan himself. So, everything that happens, I like Frosh, but everything he does, I'm kind of questioning a lot here lately.
I'm glad I supported John Carter. I wish John would have won. But nonetheless, that's our homeboy, Mark's homeboy. Mark McLaren, that's his homeboy. He was wrong with the Saeed case and giving it to Thyroid. He was wrong with HBCUs, and he's damn sure wrong on this one.
Yeah, tomorrow we're going to have Mark. Mark, we're going to have to ask you what's up with that, man. Mm-hmm. Hope you're enjoying your day and being
And we got to talk about what's going on down in Georgia. I mean, they are off the chains there, but it's not over yet, just like in Florida. But Georgia is a whole different scenario. We got to get into that because that can be a historic election, historic race. We got to pay attention to what's going on down there. But until then, stay dry, stay warm, family. Stay off the roads. It's a mess out there. Till tomorrow, we'll be back 4 to 5 p.m. right here, WRB 1010 a.m.
Free Keith Davis.
Free Keith Davis.
WOLB Baltimore and WERQ FM HD3 Baltimore.
This check on traffic is sponsored by Unbound.org. A girl in Kenya dreams of becoming a doctor. An elder in Guatemala dreams